Chris Lee and Chase Robinson of Southeastern 16 here to preview Alabama's Week 2 matchup with South Florida. The Crimson Tide, according to BetOnline, a 31-point favorite with a 63.5-point over-under. That makes for a predicted final score of Alabama 47, South Florida 16. I've got a model of several predictive metrics. Alabama's a 33-point favorite by that. You can watch it on 6 Central at ESPN, or if you're a direct TV customer like I am, you can either switch providers or listen to it on the radio, I suppose. How nice of them to do this time of the year. Anyway, let's talk about really nice people. Tell people about BetOnline, please, Chase.
Yeah, BetOnline's the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. You think you know your stuff? Get in on your $200,000 mega contest to pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, you can head over to the online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker or one of the over 150 slots games. Head over to the website today to get in on the action. BetOnline, the game starts here.
All right, let's start with South Florida's offense. I don't know what we make of a 48-3 blowout of Bethune-Cookman. Quarterback Byrum Brown, 13 of 20 for 152. No touchdowns, no picks. They spread the rushing attack around. Kelly Joyner Jr., the leading rusher, 14 carries for 78 yards. And they've got a couple of good receivers, at least according to the preseason hype. Sean Atkins and Naeem Simmons were a couple of guys that were getting some preseason all-conference love. Alabama, meanwhile, shut out Western Kentucky. And as we have pointed out, Western Kentucky traditionally has a very good offense. It's not Georgia. It's not Texas. I get that. But they are good at putting up points year after year. How do we see this side of the matchup, Chase?
Yeah, so South Florida is very interesting to me, their offense especially. And you folks remember last year, if you watched this game, Alabama goes down to Tampa to play South Florida. Just a really bizarre game. It poured down rain the whole time. There was some weather delays during it. It was 3-3 at halftime. Jalen Milroe didn't play in this game. You had Ty Simpson and Tyler Buckner swapping out at quarterback. Alabama ended up winning 7-3, but it was just a lackluster game. And really muggy and rainy down there. But what stood out to me was their offense. And Alex Galosh, their head coach, was the offensive coordinator at Tennessee in 2022 when Tennessee beat Alabama. He then gets the head coaching job at South Florida and battles with Alabama last year. And they have a decent offense again this year. They move so fast, and I think that's going to be their game plan. Against Alabama is like they always do, is go very up tempo and go at a very, very high pace. Now you mentioned they won 48-3 against Bethune-Cookman and put up 403 yards in that game. This is going to be a totally different game than what they saw with Bethune-Cookman with Alabama. But Byrum Brown is the centerpiece of this offense. You read some of his numbers a minute ago. He was one of just 2 players last year with 3,000 passing and 800 rushing yards last year. Jaden Daniels was the other guy who won the Heisman Trophy. So he could put up big numbers, and I think that's what's going to really intrigue me about this matchup is how does Byrum Brown play in this atmosphere in Tuscaloosa? What does the Alabama defense do to contain him? They just go so fast. And you know, teams that get that 19, 20 seconds per play, like that's fast, and they're going to do that. That is going to be their game plan Saturday in Tuscaloosa, is not to slow the game down and keep the ball. No, they're going to try to move on this Alabama defense as fast as they possibly can. That's what Alex Galosh is known for as a coach. He's good at getting that out of his guys, and that's what they're going to do Saturday in Tuscaloosa.
Well, Alabama's defense really showed up last week. Keon Sabb had a couple of picks. We talked about a new, maybe potentially young secondary, but hey, Alabama passed that test with flying colors.
They did, and boy, they were fun to watch. Anytime you can keep a team off the scoreboard, that's a big night. That's good for you, and Alabama was able to do that against TJ Finley, who was the quarterback for Western Kentucky, who's played SEC football before. He He's a good quarterback, and Western Kentucky's a good football team, and they stayed off the board. So I really liked what I saw from Alabama's defense. You mentioned Keon Sabb. I thought he was a really important piece for this defense this year and creating turnovers, and I think that's what Alabama needs to do, and especially against the high-powered, or not high-powered, but more up-tempo offense of South Florida they're going to see. Create some turnovers, and I think Alabama's defense can do that and take advantage of those. But anytime the team is moving really fast, therefore there's a better chance for them to make a mistake or turn the ball over, and so I think Alabama needs to capitalize on that.
Well, I'll tell you whose offense is explosive, and that is Alabama's. The Crimson Tide just one big play after another last week. I mean, it's a fantasy footballer's dream of a box score, some of these lines you're seeing, and you can only imagine what it would have been like if the game had been closer and guys that stayed in. But Jalen Milroe, 7-9 for 200 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, runs for 79 more yards. Justice Haynes turns 4 carries into 102 yards and a score. Ryan Williams, 2 catches for 139 yards and 2 scores. Good luck. We knew that they had talent. We knew that coaching staff at Washington had a history of really taking the parts it had and turning it into an elite offense. And boy, it looks like that's what they're going to do at Alabama too.
Yeah, it's incredible what they did this past week and really what we expect from Alabama's offense. 8 or 9 receivers caught passes. A handful of guys ran the ball as well. I mean, it's going to be crazy numbers what Alabama puts up this year. It really is. And behind Jalen Milroe, who we know is a fantastic quarterback, and Justice Haynes and Jam Miller running the ball, and Ryan Williams, what a great start to his career at Alabama, catching a couple of touchdowns. And so this Alabama offense is going to be able to put points on the board this year and move the ball, I think, on most teams that they play. I feel like there's very few teams that are going to be able to consistently stop an offense like this in Alabama.
Yeah, and Alabama's also got a capable backup in Ty Simpson who got some time last week. So even when they take some of the starters off the field, there's not a lot of ease up unless Alabama just calls off the dogs. And to that, I mean, last year, I think there was some kind of internal dynamics from what I heard that made that a weird game. I think Alabama was kind of a team in between. I think that was a game Jalen Milroe didn't play. And I think, you know, if a coaching staff needs to get a team's attention after the way that Alabama just really handled Western Kentucky, I think a good reminder is that South Florida was in striking distance, I think, last year in the fourth quarter of that game. You know, I don't know how much motivation Alabama needs, but there is that. It just feels like a recipe for an Alabama blowout here.
Yeah, and when you look at South Florida defensively, they're not quite as good as they were last year on that side of the ball. They actually one of their big guy, their linebacker, who is a great guy, Jalen Shuler, linebacker there for South Florida, actually hurt his shoulder in the game last week, or excuse me, his leg. Another linebacker hurt his shoulder, but Shuler should be back. Nothing really bad. He had 52 tackles last season and an interception as well. Not sure if he'll play, but they do have some guys banged up. They did have some transfers on that side of the ball. So defense is where I think they're definitely an offensive team. Will they be good on defense? Probably, but I feel like this is that's where you'll find the mismatch, is this Alabama offense and this South Florida defense.
Yeah, now the other side of that coin, South Florida won 1, 2, and 1 games respectively, the 3 seasons coming into last year when Alex Galosh took them to 7 and 6. So you got to be impressed with what they did. But this Alabama team, just week 1, again, faced a good team. Tyson Helton has good offenses at Western Kentucky. To hold them down to that when your questions were maybe in the secondary, that was impressive. So I'll stand by Alabama with the blowout, but if it looks differently, just keep that in mind. In any case, we will recap this later after the game. We'll do our Saturday night recap show. Best way to get that, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Caroline.smith at Southeastern14.com for advertising inquiries. We reach millions a year between our football, baseball, and basketball content, which we do year-round at Southeastern 14. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon at Southeastern 16, presented by Bet Online.